Good morning, good morning, good morning. My name is Crista Hermance. I'm an estate planning attorney, and we are going live today to answer your estate planning questions. We're going to give it just a minute here for people to join in. Okay, perfect. So if you are joining me live, again, my name is Crista Hermance. I'm an estate planning attorney, and we are going live to answer your estate planning questions. As I wait for people to join us here. Good morning, good morning. Thank you for joining. We're going to be talking about what is the difference between a will and a trust. This is a really big misconception that I see a lot. And it's something that a lot of times people really don't understand what either of them are. Sometimes they think they're the same document. And then even on the other side of that is they think that they don't need either, right? Maybe they don't have an estate that's big enough. So if you are joining me for the live chat, please put a comment in the chat. I'd love to see your comments in there. If you have any estate planning questions, please put those in there as well. I might be able to get to some of those questions after I finish the question that came in on what is the difference between a will and a trust. So let's start with a will. So a will is a legal document in which you identify what assets you want distributed at your passing. It also is a document that allows you to say, if you have minor children, this is who you would want to be guardians for your minor children. So a will only comes into play when somebody actually passes away. And so this is a really big misconception because a lot of times people think, well, if I have a will, that's really all I need when it comes to estate planning. That is not true because, again, the document, a will, only comes into play when somebody passes away. So if you were to get sick, and I've had this happen before, somebody called in, his dad was very sick. He needed to sell his dad's home to put him in assisted living. And he said, I have power of attorney for my dad. He did a will and he named me in it to be able to make decisions. And I told him, I said, I'm so sorry, but the will only comes into play when your dad were to pass away. The will doesn't give you any authority right now to be able to actually do any of the things you need to do while dad is sick. Right. And so that's one of the biggest misconceptions I see when it comes to wills. Wills only come into play when somebody passes away. And it's just telling the court. So it's basically saying, as you go through probate court, here's how your assets are going to be distributed according to what your wishes are. Right. And that's what a will is. Where a trust comes in is a trust says, hello, thanks for joining. I'm doing estate planning questions and answers. So if you have any estate planning questions, please put those in the chat. We're talking about the difference between a will and a trust right now. So a will, again, what goes through probate court isn't going to help, like, from a power of attorney perspective if somebody were to get sick. So on the other side of that, when we talk about trusts, a trust, also known as a revocable living trust, a living trust, a trust, a revocable trust, all of these are interchangeable terms that mean the same document. So what is a trust? Well, a trust is an agreement where you, as the grantor, which is the creator of the trust, put specific instructions in writing to the trustee. The trustee is the person who agrees to hold legal title to all of the assets in your trust. And they will follow the instructions in your trust for the benefit of your beneficiaries. So while you are alive and you have this revocable living trust, you are all three of these roles, right? You are the grantor, meaning you create your revocable living trust. You are the trustee, meaning you are in charge over all of the assets that you put into your trust. And you are also the beneficiary. All of the assets are there for your benefit, right? To be able to sell to continue to get more as you go through life. It's only if something were to happen to you, whether you were to get sick or you were to pass away, that this would then allow your successor trustee or executor to come in to be able to help take care of you if you were to get sick, or if you passed away, to then follow your instructions about what are the terms of your trust. Okay, so the trust is a tool that is used to avoid probate court, right? So do you understand the difference? So the trust is outside of probate court. If all of your assets are in it, it's a less costly way to have to distribute assets when somebody were to pass. Whereas a will is what tells the probate court how to distribute the assets. Okay, so that is a huge difference as to what the two documents do. One almost guarantees probate, and the other is meant to avoid it. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about any questions that have come in. Yes, and we have a free guide today. So if you comment trust or send us a message, we will send you our estate planning guide to help you get a better understanding of what wills and trusts are, right? Whether it's the differences, how to identify guardians for those documents. Okay, so some questions that are coming in. Hello, thank you for joining us. And again, this is a question and answer. So if you have any questions at all about estate planning, please feel free to put that in the comments, okay? And I will try to get to the questions. Okay, so are there any negatives to having a trust? I mean, I'm sure there's negatives depending on what you think is negative, right? When we look at trust, I think the negatives are really not having a trust. And where I see it come into play is when somebody gets sick. So if somebody were to get sick and they didn't have a trust, and let's say they had bank accounts, and let's say it's a single person, they had bank accounts, but they had beneficiaries listed on all their bank accounts, right? So they're planning on trying to avoid having an estate plan by just dominating beneficiaries. So in this example, not having a trust and having those accounts in the trust mean that if you were to get sick, the person that would come in to be able to help take care of you, to pay your bills, to pay for medical stuff, to use your money, can't actually access your money. And this is where having a trust would allow you to say, well, if this is the person that I've identified as my agent to make these decisions, they can have access to that money to be able to access it. So that's one of the things I think is negative of not having a trust. The other is probate court. I'm trying to think of negatives of having a trust. One of the things is maybe a negative to having trust that I've seen is maybe your family, you already know that they're going to fight, right? That there's going to be contention, and you actually want it to go in front of a court so that the court can be in charge and make the decisions, or at least be there to help make sure that things are going the way that you want. Then maybe having a trust isn't the benefit that you would want, right? Because you want it to go in front of court, right? I see this, and we have several cases like this right now where the beneficiaries are fighting. They're not getting along about how assets are being distributed according to the terms of the trust. And so we're going to have to take it in front of a court and have the court come to the decision and be able to say, this is how we're ruling. Okay. Hello. Thanks for joining. Where are you guys joining from? Just curious. And again, we're doing estate planning questions and answered. We just talked about the difference between a will and a trust. And if you have any estate planning questions, please feel free to put those in the chat, and I will try to get to them. But good question about the negatives of a trust. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. Okay. Also, if you would like our free guide on wills versus trust, please comment trust in the comments or send me a message and we'll get that sent to you. Okay. Okay. Just looking here. Sorry, there's different windows that I'm looking at to see if there's anything coming in the chat for other questions that have come in. Okay, do I need both a will and a trust? Great question. So generally, when we do estate planning, we will do a comprehensive plan, which includes power of attorney, advanced healthcare directive, HIPAA authorization, deed transfer of your home, putting it into a trust, and we would create that trust. And we would also do what's called a pour over will. And so, when you have a comprehensive estate plan, generally you would have a trust and what we would refer to as that pour over will. And what the pour over will says is it says that if you were to pass away and you had assets that maybe got left outside of your trust for whatever reason, a bank account, rather than have to go through that full probate process, it can just get poured over into your trust, right? That is the function of a pour over will. So it's not going to have a lot of private information in your will because, again, it's private. And so we want to make sure that none of your private information, or at least as much as possible, isn't going to have to go through the public probate process. And so that pour over function would then just put that asset into your trust to then be distributed according to how you want those assets distributed in your trust. So having both a will and a trust work together. Okay. I had a client who came to me. Her mom had done a will and a trust in, I want to say, Montana. And they didn't use the same kind of functionality with the pour-over will that we did. And so when her mom came here and she passed away living in California, she didn't have that pour over function in her will. And so we had to do a full probate court proceeding because the will didn't say it was going to get put into the trust. And so we had simultaneous actions going where one was a probate proceeding going through court and the other was the trust administration because she had assets in her trust and she had assets outside of her trust. And so it's really important to make sure that when you do your estate planning, you understand what needs to be done to make sure that it's going to work the way that you have planned. Okay. Okay. I think that is it for comments. Again, I'm going to be going live every day this week at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So if you have questions and maybe you're watching this in the replay, be sure to put your questions in the comments and I can try and get to them later this week. And if you do want that free estate planning guide where we talk about the difference between a will or a trust, please comment trust in the comments or go ahead and send me a message. And as always, if you are in California, which is where we are licensed to practice, and you need help getting started on estate planning, or maybe you have a probate or trust administration situation that you need assistance with, please send us a message and we can send you the link to schedule a free consultation. And this will kind of help just make it a little bit more clear on what those next steps are. I know estate planning can be overwhelming. It's not really, a lot of people don't really know where to start. And this is one way to kind of help you just get started on that. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.